My name is Carol, and this morning at precisely 6:15 a.m., the world began its descent into utter chaos, and I, for one, will not stand for it. It began, as most transgressions do, with the Jeffersons at number 42. I was enjoying my morning Earl Grey on my pristine white porch, surveying the cul-de-sac of Serenity Meadows with the quiet satisfaction of a queen overlooking her kingdom. The lawns were perfectly manicured, the mailbox colors were in compliance, colonial blue and dove white per CCR's Section 4, Paragraph B, and the silence was divine. Then I saw it. A vehicle, a truly vulgar, mud-splattered Jeep Wrangler, was parked in the Jeffersons' driveway. Not in the garage, where vehicles belong, but brazenly on the exposed driveway. And it was dripping. Some kind of dark, viscous fluid was pooling on the pristine concrete. This was a clear violation of the community standards regarding unsightly vehicle discharge, CCRs, Section 12, Paragraph F. I sighed, the sound full of martyrdom. I would have to add it to the agenda for the next HOA board meeting. I retrieved my official Neighborhood Watch and Compliance notepad, a lovely leather-bound folio, and made a meticulous note. 7:02 a.m. Property, Dark 42. Offensive vehicle fluid leak. Issue formal warning. Potential fine. As I wrote, my phone buzzed. An alert. Probably another Amber Alert, distracting people from their morning routines. I dismissed it without reading. A moment later, my landline rang. The caller ID showed it was Brenda from number 28. Brenda was a dreadful gossip, and I simply didn't have the energy for her histrionics before my second cup of tea. I let it go to voicemail. The real disturbance started around 7:30 a.m. Sirens, not just one, but many, wailing from the direction of the highway. How inconsiderate. The noise pollution was bound to upset the songbirds. Then the power flickered and died. My smart speaker, which was playing a gentle Bach concerto, went silent. The digital clock on my stove blinked a pathetic 12, and this was an outrage. I paid a premium for uninterrupted utilities in Serenity Meadows. I immediately dialed the power company. All circuits were busy. Unacceptable. I tried the non-emergency line for the sheriff's department. Also, busy, frustrated, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I would march over to the Jeffersons and demand they move their disgusting vehicle. Perhaps they had a generator. And if they did, I would have to inform them that unauthorized generator use before 8 a.m. was a violation of the noise ordinance. I put on my wide-brimmed sun hat and my "I'm with the HOA" pin. I was not just Carol. I was the standard-bearer for order. I stepped out into the unnaturally quiet morning. The air felt thick. And was that smoke I smelled? Probably someone using a non-regulation fire pit. The list of violations was growing by the minute. My first stop was not the Jeffersons, but the Miller residence at number 37. Their garbage can had been knocked over, and several bags of trash were strewn across their lawn. The audacity to leave such a mess for the entire neighborhood to see. I strode up their perfectly paved walkway, my heels clicking a staccato of disapproval. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I knocked sharply. "Mr. Miller, this is Carol from the HOA. Your trash situation is a clear violation of community aesthetic standards." I heard a thumping sound from inside. Good. They were home, probably hiding from their responsibilities. I knocked again, louder. "I know you're in there. This will result in a fine." The door swung open so violently it slammed against the inside wall. Mr. Miller stood there, but he looked unwell. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot and unfocused. He was still in his pajamas, which were stained with what looked like ketchup? Disgusting. "Mr. Miller," I began, my voice dripping with condescension. "Your appearance is concerning. And your trash?" He didn't let me finish. He let out a low, guttural groan and lunged at me. I sidestepped with a gasp of pure indignation. Had he been drinking? "At this hour, sir? Control yourself! This is assault!" "I will be calling the police." He stumbled past me off the porch and fell onto the lawn. He didn't get up. He just started eating the grass? No, not the grass. He was tearing into one of the spilled trash bags with his teeth, ripping into a bag of leftover chicken. I was mortified. This was a new low. Public intoxication and now this animalistic behavior? I pulled out my phone to record the incident as evidence. The screen was still showing no service. Infuriating. I left him to his whatever that was, and continued my rounds, my sense of outrage now a roaring fire. I saw more unsettling things. Old Mrs. Gable's miniature poodle was loose, and it was chewing on something that looked suspiciously like a finger. Absolutely vile. The Johnsons had left their garage door open, and I could see their teenage son standing inside, just staring at a wall. Lazy youth. I finally reached the Jeffersons' house. The foul Jeep was still there, the puddle now larger. I marched up to the front door, ready to read them the riot act. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. Hello? Jeffersons? This is Carol from the HOA. Your vehicle is leaking fluids all over the community. The smell hit me first. Metallic and foul like a butcher's shop on a hot day. The living room was in disarray. A lamp was knocked over. A coffee table was shattered. And there, in the middle of the rug, was Mrs. Jefferson. She was on her hands and knees, and she was eating the family cat. I stood frozen, my brain refusing to process the image. The pristine white rug was now a canvas of red. Mrs. Jefferson looked up. Her face was a mask of blood, her eyes blank and hungry. She saw me and let out a wet, choking snarl. My HOA notepad fell from my numb fingers. This wasn't a violation, this was something else. I did the only thing a reasonable person could do. I turned and ran, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had to call the police. I had to call the board. This required an emergency meeting. I slammed and locked my own front door, leaning against it, gasping for breath. My perfect, orderly world was cracking. I went to my landline, my hands shaking so badly I could barely press the buttons. 911. It rang, and rang, and rang finally. A harried voice answered. 911, what is your emergency? Yes, hello, I said, trying to sound authoritative. This is Carol Pembroke, head of the Serenity Meadows HOA. There is a situation at number 42. A resident is defacing property and engaging in unsanitary conduct. There was a long pause, punctuated by the sound of shouting and sirens in the background. Ma'am, the operator said, her voice strained. Are you in a safe location? Of course I'm safe. I'm in my home. But the Jeffersons, ma'am, I need you to listen carefully. Barricade your doors and windows. Do not approach anyone who appears sick or disoriented. Do you understand? Help may not be able to reach you for some time. This is unacceptable, I snapped. I demand you send a unit immediately. There is a public health hazard. The line went dead. She had hung up on me. The sheer disrespect. Furious, I decided to escalate. I would call the mayor's office. I had his personal number from the last community fundraiser. I dialed. No answer. I tried the head of the county commission. Nothing. My phone buzzed again. A text from Brenda, finally. I opened it. It wasn't her usual gossip. It was a single frantic sentence. They're not sick, Carol. They're dead. They're eating people. Don't let them bite you. I stared at the message. Nonsense. Hysterical nonsense. Brenda had always been prone to melodrama. They're dead? What a ridiculous thing to say. They were clearly ill. Probably some bad drugs going around. That would explain the Jefferson boy staring at the wall. I went to my front window and peered through the blinds. The scene outside was no longer just a series of violations. It was a nightmare. I saw Mr. Henderson from number 15 chasing his wife across their lawn. He caught her by the bird bath and he bit a chunk out of her shoulder. She screamed, a sound so piercing it cut through the now familiar moans that filled the air. This wasn't disobedience. This was anarchy, my authority, my rules, my fines. They meant nothing. The police weren't coming. The mayor wasn't answering. For the first time, a cold, sharp sliver of fear pierced the armor of my indignation. What if Brenda wasn't being dramatic? What if the operator wasn't just incompetent? What if the rules had truly, completely changed? The fear was quickly smothered by a rising tide of pure, unadulterated anger. This chaos was an personal insult. It was a direct assault on everything I had worked for, everything I had built. Serenity Meadows was my masterpiece, and it was being vandalized by its own residents. I decided I would not be a victim of this delinquency. I would restore order, starting with my own street. I went to my garage. I wasn't a prepper like that paranoid weirdo, Eli, who lived on the hill outside of town and was probably loving this. I was a sensible, civilized person, but I did have tools. I selected my husband's old titanium driver from his golf bag. It had a good weight. It would serve as a compliance enforcement tool. I also retrieved the megaphone I used for our annual neighborhood block party. If they wouldn't listen to reason, they would listen to volume. I stepped back outside, megaphone in one hand, golf club in the other. I saw 3 of them shambling near the community mailboxes. One was the paper boy, Timmy. His blue uniform shirt was drenched in red. I raised the megaphone to my lips. My voice, amplified and distorted, echoed through the cul-de-sac. Attention residents of Serenity Meadows. This is Carol Pembroke of the Homeowners Association. You are in violation of multiple community covenants. Cease this unruly behavior immediately and return to your homes. The 3 figures stopped. They turned their heads slowly towards the sound of my voice. Their blank, milky eyes fixed on me. They began to moan and shuffle in my direction. This is your final warning. I shrieked into the megaphone. You are trespassing on common area property. I am authorized to use force. They didn't stop. They kept coming. The fear returned, colder this time. I dropped the megaphone and gripped the golf club with both hands. Timmy was the closest. He reached for me, his mouth opening. I didn't think. I swung. The club connected with the side of his head with a wet, sickening thwack. It wasn't like in the movies. It was hard and messy. He stumbled but didn't fall. He didn't even seem to notice. He just kept coming. I swung again and again, driven by a frenzy of terror and rage. Stop! Violating the rules! Finally, he went down, his skull grotesquely misshapen. I stood over him, panting, my lovely sun hat askew, my linen blouse spattered with whatever that was. I had done it. I had enforced the rules. I looked up, a crazed sense of victory in my eyes. But the other 2 were almost upon me, and behind them I saw more. Drawn by the noise of the megaphone and the struggle, dozens of them, emerging from houses, from between yards, all shambling towards me. My victory curdled into sheer, bowel-clenching terror. There were too many violations. Far too many. I turned and ran for my house, dropping the golf club. I was almost to my door when I tripped over my own welcome mat, a tasteful Bless This Home design, and fell hard on my front steps. My ankle screamed in pain. I scrambled, crawling on my hands and knees, but a hand closed around my leg. It was cold and strong. I looked back. It was Brenda. Her face, usually so full of gossipy life, was slack and gray. A huge bite was taken out of her neck. She pulled me towards her, her mouth opening. No! I screamed, my voice finally stripped of all its authority, all its condescension. It was just a raw, human shriek of terror. Brenda, you can't! This is private property! She bit down on my calf. The pain was excruciating, a white-hot fire that shot up my entire leg. I kicked at her face with my other foot, finally breaking free. I dragged myself inside, slammed the door, and crawled into the center of my living room, sobbing. I was bleeding. I was bitten. Brenda's text echoed in my mind. Don't let them bite you, I had failed. The HOA had failed. The world had failed. Part 5 of 5, the final compliance notice, 2 p.m., 6 p.m. The pain in my leg was a constant, throbbing agony. The wound was ugly, the edges already turning a dark, bruised purple. I felt hot, then cold. My thoughts became muddy. I crawled to the kitchen and tried to call for help again, but my fingers were too clumsy to work the phone. I sat propped against my stainless steel refrigerator, watching the red stain spread on my cream-colored trousers. This was all so untidy, so unfair. I had followed all the rules. I had paid my dues. I had enforced the covenants. How could this be happening to me? The world outside my window grew darker, not with night, but with the shadows of the things gathering around my house. They pressed against the windows, their moans a constant droning soundtrack to my fever. My beautiful, custom-made curtains were being smeared with grime and blood. I was so cold. I thought about the Jeffersons' ruined rug. I thought about Timmy's caved-in skull. I thought about Brenda's dead eyes. My vision started to blur. The moans outside began to sound less like a threat and more like a call. An invitation, a new thought, simple and direct, cut through the dying embers of my own consciousness. A final, all-consuming directive. I'm so hungry. The pain faded, replaced by a hollow, gnawing emptiness in my gut. The sight of my own bloody leg didn't disgust me anymore. It made my mouth water. The last vestige of Carol Pembroke, HOA president, was concerned with one final critical thought. That welcome mat is still askew. It's a tripping hazard. Someone could get hurt. I tried to stand to straighten it, but my body wouldn't obey my commands. It was obeying a new, simpler set of rules. The old ones, the covenants, the restrictions, the fines, drifted away like smoke. I got to my feet. The movement was stiff, jerky. I didn't feel the broken ankle anymore. I didn't feel anything but the hunger. I shuffled toward my front door. My own reflection in the hall mirror showed a pale, slack-faced thing with hungry eyes, a violation of every standard of appearance I had ever upheld. I felt no shame, only purpose. I unlocked the door and opened it. The things outside, my former neighbors, turned to look at me. They didn't attack. They just moaned, a low, welcoming sound. I joined them, a new sound tearing from my own throat. A guttural, needy moan. I stepped over my own welcome mat and out into the chaos. The HOA was dissolved. There was only the hunt. Carol was gone. But the need for order, in its most primitive form, remained. I was now part of the horde. And we were very, very hungry.